What's going on, you gamers? Today we're going to be jumping into a little bit more Diablo 4, and today I'm going to be going over an early game build for the Barbarian that can really help players out in order to make their way through the content and not have so many struggles. So if you want a beginner build to work towards and ways to improve it going forward, then stay tuned. That's coming up next. Welcome back everybody. Today we're jumping back into the world of Diablo 4 and we're going to be looking at the Barbarian class and how to spec out his skill tree and give him some elements that can really help him to keep alive as well as take down those tricky enemies and bosses. Now the Barbarian, because of just how in the thick of things he is, very close range, has to be able to take a punch, but we also want him to be able to dish out some beats and take down the enemies as we go. Now I'm going to put on a little bit of footage showing you exactly what this build's all about, and then straight after that we'll jump straight into the full build guide. Right, so hopefully from that you can see that this is a lot of fun to play. There's a lot of versatility in this build and it covers pretty much all of the bases. You're able to gain unstoppable, you're able to make the enemies vulnerable, and you're also able to gain berserk quite easily, as well as being able to grab quite a fair amount of fortified. Now remember, this is also a work in progress, you'll be able to get a lot more powerful than this as you start to gear up and make your way through the campaign. So the skill tree we're working with here, this was at level 20, you're able to grab yourself 21 points as you're able to collect a few through your renown. But starting it off, we're going to be going with Frenzy. It's just a really nice move to use, very quick, and it allows us to generate our fury at a very nice decent rate. This is going to unleash a flurry of blows. We're only going to be putting 1 point into this, but most times you're going to want to be doing this for a little while in order to generate that extra bit of speed. So it starts off at 20%. When your frenzy stacks go up, after 3 seconds you can make it all the way to 60%. Then you're going to go up to here and you're going to grab yourself Enhanced Frenzy as well. When Frenzy is granting its full 60% bonus, it also generates 2 additional Fury. And lastly, giving yourself a little bit of survivability, you're going to gain 8% damage reduction for the stack of frenzy. For each stack of Frenzy you currently have. So now at max you'll be able to get 24% damage reduction, which can really help with your survivability. Just then from here we're going to move to our core, and I've been trying a few of these out. I absolutely love using Upheaval, but for this build we're going to be going with this right here, and it's going to be Hammer of the Ancients. I actually have a feeling that Hammer of the Ancients might be a bit of a hidden gem of very late game, as I think you'll be able to use it quite a bit more than Upheaval, and you're going to be able to spam it a lot faster. You're going to be able to put 2 points into that. I've got 3 because I've got 1 from the contribution on my actual gear, but you're going to have 2, and then you're going to have Enhanced Hammer of the Ancients, gain 3% more Fury for 5 seconds for each enemy damaged by Hammer of the Ancients, and again this can stack up to 10 times, allowing us to grab a little bit more Fury. And lastly, a little bit of extra damage never hurts anyone, and that's going to be Furious Hammer of the Ancients. Hammer of the Ancients now deals 1% additional damage for each point of Fury you had when you're using it. Later on, when we're able to stack our Fury a little bit more, this is definitely going to mount up and do a lot of additional damage. So that's going to cover our standard and basic attacks that we'll be using, and then we're going to bop all the way down to our defensive, And the first one we're going to pick up is going to be Rallying Cry. This is going to allow us to get a little bit of movement speed, which is always really nice to have, but it's also going to give us a bit of resource generation. Now my one's boosted a little bit again, as standard is going to give you the generation for up to 6 seconds, as well as giving it to your allies as well. Up from here we've got Enhanced Rallying Cry. Now it's going to allow you to get unstoppable, so if you have been frozen or if you got any hard CC, now you can get out of that, which is great. And Tactical Rallying Cry. Rallying Cry generates 20 fury and grants you an additional 20% resource generation. This one is down to personal preference. I actually prefer to have it on this very early on, and that's going to be the Strategic Rallying Cry, because we are actually able to generate fury anyway, even though it does take a little bit of time, whereas this one now allows us to get a little bit more fortified fast, allowing us to get into that fortified state even easier, building up our defences. But this one's down to personal preference. If you want a little bit more fury, go with this one. If you want a bit more defence, then pick this one. Just down from there, and we're going with Iron Skin. Just chuck one into that, that's easily going to be enough, and it's going to allow you to grab a barrier, and you're going to want to pop this whenever you're going at around about half or just under half health. Then from here, Enhance Iron Skin. Now the barrier is going to absorb a little bit extra and give you more of your maximum life. And finally, whilst Iron Skin is active, this is going to heal for 10% of the barrier's original amount. So as you start stacking this one up, especially if you get extra bonuses on your armor and such, that's going to make the healing even better. So now allowing you to have a little heal on your bar whenever you pop your Iron Skin. Just down from here, and we've put one into our challenging shouts. Again, I've got another one from my armor pieces. You're only going to need one if you're at level 20, but if you can pick up a few more as you go, then it's well worth adding a few additional, as this one just saves your life so much. Taunts nearby enemies and gains 44% damage reduction for 6 seconds. But Challenging Shout is a great defensive one to have on, and even having one that can really help you out. Just down from here, and we've picked up this one right here. This is going to help you, it's going to help out your team, anyone who's around you, if you're playing with friends, if you're fighting world bosses. This is really going to come into play. That's going to be your booming voice. Your shout skill effect durations are increased by 8%. And just up from here, probably a little bit more significant, is going to be your shouts also heal allies for 3% of their maximum life per second. This applies for yourself as well, so once you start stacking it all together, and if you can actually chuck a little bit more into this later on, that will definitely work in your favour, because you're going to get a nice little heal whenever you're popping your Iron Skin, which isn't classed as a shout, but we're able to get that from what we did earlier. And of course your other 2 shouts going on as well. Now later on, as you start progressing through the game, if you pick up some nice aspects, for example this one right here, you may well be able to take a little bit out of your defensive tree, so you may be able to get rid of this one or even this one, and then you'll probably want to spec into this. Late game, you're almost definitely going to pick up Warcry, because it's really going to help you to dish out some extra damage. But until you start picking up those really nice aspects, keep it as it is in order to keep your character alive. Again, don't worry about the ones and everything in this tree, that's all just from my extras on my gear. Instead, you're going to bop straight down again, and you're going to pick up this one right here, your Steel Grasp. Steel Grasp is probably one of my favourite moves in the game. It's very utility purpose orientated. I don't use this to dish out damage, it just gives me exactly what I need from a utility skill. This has 2 charges, and whenever I use it, because of what we've got in our skill tree, Enhanced Steel Grasp, now it's going to make the enemies vulnerable, and just over here it's also going to mean you get Berserk for 2 seconds. So pretty much you're going to want to dish this skill out just before you're going in with your heavier attacks, in order to give yourself an extra boost of damage and to give them some kind of a weakness. Ultimately, for early game, that should really keep you alive. There's a lot going on with your defences, you've got enough shouts going, you've got healing regen. And like I said, if you start to pick up some nice aspects that allow you to get some survivability, then spec into your Warcry, and that will dish out a little bit more damage with your build. Overall, that's going to give you these skills right here on your skill bar, and should give you pretty much everything you need to deal with any situation in the game. Everything else will be a little bit dependent on gear, and hoping you get some nice lucky rolls, as well as getting yourself some new aspects. So if I show you my Barbarian just here, as you can see, he has not got any completely crazy outstanding stats. His attack power is only around about 400, his armor's 1600, and his life's at 370. So for level 20, his stats are definitely not anything crazy. But the great thing about this build is, in the grand scheme of things, you don't actually need too much, A few legendary aspects can definitely help it shine, but even without them you'll be able to make your way forward in the campaign and you shouldn't have too many issues no matter what difficulty setting you're putting it on. Remember, for your core stats, the main one you're going to want to be focusing on is going to be your strength, then after that I'd say it's probably going to be your dexterity, and then a little bit later on if you can, maybe a little bit into your willpower. For your armour pieces, if you can manage to get some extra life or some extra fury, that's going to make things a lot easier. And it's not 100% needed, but if you can pick up another legendary that has got unstoppable on it, that may well help you as well, just in case your other skills down. Other than that, focus on anything that's going to be able to give you extra ranks to the skills you're using, especially for ones such as Hammer of the Ancients, because you're really going to be focusing on that in order to burn down the bosses and take out those mobs of enemies. And even if you're like me and have a very lackluster, even though it is a legendary, it's only level 11 at the moment, so you'll be able to get much higher damage. You've got a nice legendary or even a rare of higher level, but try to focus on anything that's going to give you additional damage, such as damage to close range enemies. Of course, damage mitigation at close range is good as well, and core skill is definitely a must. A great legendary aspect to definitely look out for will be one such as this: attacking enemies with a basic skill increases the damage of your next core skill cast by a certain amount, up to 30%. So if you're able to get hold of this one, try and chuck it into your build. A nice early one to pick up is going to be Vigo's Protecting Amulet. This is going to allow you to have a bubble shield go around you when you're in trouble. It's going to last for about 6 seconds and it's going to make you totally immune. This can only happen once every 1.5 minutes, but it can be a real lifesaver in those tricky situations. Other than that, like I said, focus on strength, focus on your crit damage. A little bit of overpower can help you out massively as well, and just keep gearing up as you make your way through the campaign or through doing various other activities in the game, and you'll easily be able to overcome the game or adapt this build in order to make it better later as you go. There's going to be a lot more Diablo content from me. Let me know in the comments what's your favourite skill on Barbarian and how are you finding the game overall. But as always, for all things gaming, take care. I'll see you on the next day.